तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Hari Om all and good evening. So we continue with the personality chart and using the three gunas to assess ourselves. Just a minute. Yeah. So we were trying to understand the components of action and their classification into three gunas. So the three main components of action are knowledge, action, and actor. And knowledge corresponds to the quality of intellect. The success of action corresponds to steadfastness or dhriti. And the actor, in and through all this, is seeking happiness. If we are able to perform actions properly, we will be able to transcend the action, which is renunciation or tyaga. All these are classified under the three gunas of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sorry. So we covered knowledge, action, and actor in the last class, and we were talking about intellect. Intellect is that which distinguishes human being from all other creatures. So we were talking about what is known as the concept of dharma in a human being. A verse in Sanskrit says, ahara nidra bhaya maitunam cha samanam yetat pashubir narana. Ahara nidra bhaya maitunam cha. Ahara means food, nidra means sleep, bhaya means fear, which are instinctive in nature, and maitunam, mating. All these are equal to men and animals, humans and animals. All these are equal to both. Dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho. Dharmena hinaha pashubhihi samanaha. So for them means for humans, dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho. The extra speciality that a human being has got, because of which he is sitting at the top of the pyramid, is dharma. And dharmena hinaha, if dharma goes away, he is equal to animal only. This is what this verse says. So the all important thing that is makes a human being what he is dharma. And this dharma, we said, one is, if we understand dharma at the absolute level, which is the self. So dharma of all beings is the self, and we specially say it to human beings because he has the potential to realize the self. And the other extreme, we talked about swadharma. Swadharma is peculiar to every human being based on his vasanas, based on his inherent talent, based on his innate tendencies. That which is waiting to express in him is swadharma. But we are talking about what is the dharma of a human being. So dharma of a human being, as we said, dharma is that which makes it what it is, without which it is not what it is. Sweetness is what makes sugar what it is. So we say sugar, dharma is sweetness. Ferocity is the dharma of tigers. It applies to all tigers. Similarly, it applies to all water bodies, whatever is the dharma of water. Like that it is. So something must be applicable to all human beings. What is that? So dharma essentially is the principle with which a human being conducts himself, which can be qualified as a human being. Right? So what is the basis for that? Basis for that is actually thinking. and thinking is the faculty of intellect. Now, if we carefully analyze, the thinking in a very, very basic or a rudimentary fashion is available for animals also. If you show a biscuit packet to a dog, it comes to you running with the hope of eating it. When it comes near, you hide a stick behind you and you beat the dog very badly. It whines and runs away. Again, you show the biscuit packet to the dog. From a distance now, it is wanting to come. At the same time, it is aware of its experience. So it waits and watches. In a way, you can say it is exercising its thinking whether to come or not. So this is all the thinking, if at all you say, for the animal is at the basic instinct level. And the instincts of animals are what we have also is towards eating, towards mating, towards sleep, towards fear. That is what the verse said. But apart from that, a human being can think in terms of welfare for others. Think in terms of various innovations. Think in terms of the fundamental questions of life which only a human can do in terms of who is God or is there somebody called God, etc. And if he is able to acquire the knowledge with the intellect for this purpose, then he qualifies to be a human being. So, mere acquisition of knowledge and exercise of intellect alone cannot qualify. That expresses in a conduct by which he is on the path towards evolution consciously is that which qualifies a human being. So this is the dharma of a human being, and this is what intellect should essentially say. See, there are people or ways in which human beings, let us say, slaughter animals. And we are here not talking about whether a person should be vegetarian or non-vegetarian. That's not the point. But it is understood now, or with knowledge they have found out, that when an animal sees the other animal being slaughtered, let's say a goat sees the another goat being slaughtered, it produces certain chemicals, enzymes within the body, which is out of fear, which is not really good when human consumes it. In other words, it is adding something to the body of the goat which is maybe poisonous or which is not as healthy. So therefore what he now does is, while slaughtering, he makes sure that even as in assembly line the goats are going for slaughter, one does not see each other. They go in a reverse direction or something like that. This is, if you want to say, it is using his thinking. But here, the question of whether an animal should be slaughtered and how an animal should be slaughtered is not the thought process. The thought process is how we can make it streamlined in such a way that one goat does not see the other goat. This also forms part of the thinking. So here when we use intellect, we are not talking about intellect in this limited sense. It is talking about certain fundamental questions based on which you conduct your life. So in one way, dharma is also used in terms of what really you would not want others to do to you, you should not also do to others, in a simple way. So like that, if there are questions that come, the questions that come only to a person who wants to be dharmic, who wants to understand dharma and wants to conduct himself really as a human being. So therefore in him, the intellect functions, and the sattvic aspect of the intellect is that which distinguishes clearly and gives him the right guidance. So sattvic intellect is that which distinguishes between, it says here, pravrittim cha, nivrittim cha, karya, karye, karya, akarya. That means karya, karye, bhaya, bhaye, bhaya, nabhaya, bandham, moksha. So there are 4 pairs of opposites given here in this verse. Sattvic intellect clearly distinguishes between what is the path of action and what is the path of renunciation. There are two sets of people. Of course, one is in a majority, could be in a small minority. That one wants to go inwards and they are not wanting to go outward and do actions because of their higher state of evolution. They are introverts. They are renunciates. And some or majority are wanting to go outward because they are having a lot of desires and therefore they need to do actions. Both are sanctioned in spirituality. Adhikari for this is different, adhikari for that is different. So first of all in life, your intellect will say what is the major path that you must take, which category you belong to, whether you belong to the category of introverts or extroverts. And then in the field of activity that you have chosen, what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. What is it that is going to guide you in terms of your duties is what you need to do. And just because you have certain inclinations and likes and dislikes, that ought not to be done based on the mind. So having an emotion and having a passion is perfectly okay, but actions should not be initiated by mere emotions. So what ought to be done and what ought not to be done has to be decided by, again, the intellect. Sattvic intellect very clearly says. So in a swadharmic field of activity, it will choose, and in that field of activity, you do certain thing because you are committed to it. That is what you need to do, irrespective of what results it gives, irrespective of whether you like it or not. Today, if there is a class that at this point of time, whether or not, I do not know, even know honestly how many people come or what is the review about it. This has to be done. Or today there is a, let's say, an important match or important video that I want to see. Let us not do it today. This is based on my inclination or like or dislike. Action should not be emanating out of it. However justifiable it may seem. So intellect clearly distinguishes what ought to be done and what ought not to be done. Third is very important. Intellect, Sattvic intellect distinguishes between what is to be feared and what is not to be feared. 16th chapter of Gita is talking about a divine person having divine qualities. And the first of that quality is called as Abhayam. Abhayam means fearlessness. Fearlessness is the hallmark of a spiritual person. He does not fear anyone. He does not really fear about anything. His conscience is very clear. In fact, we have discussed, when we discussed about fear in one of the Friday classes, that it is a direct product of ignorance. It's a direct product of selfishness. But one should not misunderstand this fearlessness, this quality, that you are extremely, what to say, not cautious at all. In fact, put it this way, if a person is fearful or cautious about law of karma, which is talking about the cause and effect, so if he is very careful about this, cautious about this, then he need not really fear anything else. But just for argument's sake, if a person is going into a trek and he goes into the banks of a river, so it is very exciting and you want to take path, but suddenly in an area where you do not know the current, you do not know that place, no, I am a fearless person and will you want to dive there? No, that is not proper. You may lose your life. No, but you are a fearless person. What are you afraid of? This is a very stupid argument. So it ought to be very careful as to what are the things that you must be very cautious about. We talked about self-control a few weeks back. People are not really afraid of sense indulgence. People are not afraid of the repercussions that complete indulgence, what it can lead to them, how they can become addicted. They are not afraid of it. They are saying, just go ahead with it, man. This is life for you to enjoy like that. Meaning, there is no thinking. It is just that they go along with the mind's whims and fancies. On the contrary, certain things they ought not to fear. If a person wants to pursue spirituality, let us say, in an earnest way, The parents will induce fear in them. All these things, why are you getting into now? Let us see after retirement or something like that. Be very careful about Vedanta. They will put a fear into your minds about even reading the scripture, which is maybe they will say teaching renunciation or something. What ought not to be feared, they fear. And what ought to be feared, they are not afraid of. Avala transactions, this, that, you know. It could be even for a good cause. You are saying if you want to avoid tax, do this or something. Those things you must be afraid of. Carefully built up reputation and other things can go overnight because of one indiscriminate act. You be very careful, and such a time keep your, even if you are not able to decide, keep calm and your conscience will give you a right direction. This ought to be feared and this ought not to be feared is very clearly what intellect will say. Ultimately, all this leads to what is it that will take you to bondage and what is it that will take you to liberation. Very clear is Sattvic intellect as to not wanting to get bound in more and more samsara. It understands the purpose of human life to be moving towards liberation. So they will be extremely cautious about what is there a potential bondage for them in any particular thought, emotion or action. So they are very cautious about it, and this is what an intellect should do. This is what a Sattvic intellect will actually distinguish. So if a person is along the path of Dharma towards the self, it will be very stable in him, that intellect, that it will tell him what to do and what not to do. And that is what must be the essence of our studies. This class, when you attend, or other sadhana that you do, it is meant for developing this intellect. That is the purpose. And the purpose of the intellect is not to boast about more knowledge which comes along the way, but the essence of that intellect shows in the conduct. It shows in your attitude towards the self. It ultimately culminates in surrender. This is what the intellect, in other words, intellect also finally tells you about the limitation of the intellect. We will see that probably in the next class. So this is Sattvic intellect. And as I said, Rajasic and Tamasic are not really the exact definitions. It is given for us to correct our misconceptions. And as I said, Rajas is the opposite of Sattva. Sattvic intellect is clear, Rajasic intellect is confused. A confused state of mind, we cannot strictly call it intellect. You can say that that is Rajasic intellect. So, Rajasic intellect understands wrongly Dharma and Adharma. It is confused, it is not clear as to what it is. It's very interesting analysis that we see. The first chapter of Bhagavad Gita is dedicated to Arjuna's depressed state, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. And in the second chapter, Gita starts with the highest philosophy of Sankhya Yoga. Right. And Arjuna's, what to say, lecture, as it were, is there in the first chapter, but his Arjuna Uvacha, his verses also continue in the second chapter. Up to the 10th verse it is there. Now the question arises as to what was the need for these 10 verses to be placed in a second chapter. They could have very well combined this to completely talk about Arjuna in the first chapter and begin with the grand knowledge of Sankhya Yoga from the mouth of Lord Krishna in the second chapter. Very well it could have been done like that. But we see that very specifically Arjuna is eloquently speaking in the first chapter, and towards the end of it all, with eyes full of tears, he sits down. And what Krishna does is that he pokes him a little in the beginning of the second chapter and he brings out various other issues, and that is what is the up to the 10th verse of the second chapter. Why is this given like that. It's a very interesting thought. Before that, we will see. Just a minute. Alok, I'm coming to that. We'll even take up the question towards the end of the class. Yeah. So when it comes to Tamasic intellect, we said in the last class that Tamas and Sattva in their expression mimic each other. So what is the difference between Tamas and Rajas here? Rajasic intellect is confused. It is confused as to what is Dharma and what is Adharma. But Tamasic intellect is clear. It has no confusion. Steeped in ignorance, Tamasic intellect very clearly sees Adharma as Dharma. So that means there is an absolute perverted understanding. Suppose you say that everybody knows because of the gravity, apple falls down. Something you throw up comes down. Coming down is the actual law of gravity. It functions and it comes down. Everybody knows it and everybody sees it. If somebody says, no, I saw apple going up, what can you tell that person? Nothing you can tell that person. He is very clear that apple is going up. Only thing we can come to a conclusion is that he is hanging upside down. That's all. He is hanging upside down, and because the apple is coming down, he is seeing it going up. That's all. That means his vision is ulta. His perception is ulta. So this is the exact difference between the state of Rajasic intellect and Tamasic intellect. Arjuna in the first chapter is exhibiting Tamasic intellect because he has got clear solutions. He is very, very pakka in his understanding that we must run away from the war. He is also giving various theories and logic and various things to support. So at that point of time, when Tamasic intellect is there, Krishna keeps quiet. Therefore, there is no Bhagavan Vacha in the first chapter. And to such an intellect, you don't argue at all. And you don't have any meaningful conversation at all. That's a very great psychological lesson there. All that you need to do is poke them where it hurts them, if at all. Because Arjuna is not inherently a Tamasic person and his intellect is not inherently Tamasic. It is that aspect of him which exhibits because of an extreme delusion and depression of the mind. Therefore, when the poking from Krishna comes, Arjuna expresses his doubt. So, second chapter talks about Arjuna's state in the Rajasic intellect. Only when confusion is there, then there is a chance of clarity. If confusion is not there and you are very clear and you are very clear about the opposite, there is no redemption at all. So the Tamasic intellect is exactly understanding the opposite and it is firm in its conviction. Rajasic intellect is not clearly understanding. That is why Arjuna says in second chapter, whether we should kill the venerable Drona and Bhishma or whether we should fight the war, I am confused. You know, I am your disciple. Please educate me. My mind is not able to come to a proper conclusion. All this confusion is expressed in the second chapter. So from certainty, it goes to doubt and then it goes to silence. Only then knowledge of Krishna comes. So Rajasic intellect is that which wrongly understands it's in a confused state of mind. On the other hand, Tamasic intellect is very clear. This is what it is. You know, some people will very clearly say to cheat is very perfectly okay. Something like that. You be corrupt, it's perfectly okay. Something they have a reason or logic and they hold on to it. And it is very, what to say, pakka for them. For them, there is no doubt at all. That is, and who can understand? When you are, as I said, tamas is ignorance of ignorance. You cannot understand it when you are in tamas. Only a person of a very high stature with Sattvic intellect, he clearly understands. Yet he cannot have a communication or interaction with him, but you can understand. And Rajasic intellect, as I say, Rajas manifestation is completely different. It is confused. He himself is agitated about it. He is not very clear. In that state of desperation, chances that he may seek knowledge. That's all. But Rajas is a state of complete confusion. Dhriti. Next is Dhriti, firmness. Sattvic Dhriti is the unwavering firmness in yoga towards the self. You restrain all your senses, prana and the mind in your pursuit towards the self-realization. Firmness or Dhriti or the courage and conviction with which you operate in the world, that is also classified in terms of what you align with. 14th chapter, which talks about Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, says, Urdhvam gachanti sattvastaha, madhye tishtanti rajasaha, jaganya gunavrittistaha, adho gachanti tamasaha. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastaha means Sattvic people move upwards, evolve. Madhye tishtanti rajasaha means Rajasic people are standing in the middle. They maintain a status quo, circling around here. Jaganya gunavrittistaha adho gachanti tamasaha. Adho gachanti means, adho means downwards. Adho mukham they say, no, of Shiva has 5 faces, and when critical phase comes, he takes the 6th face, and that face is called adho mukham. 5 faces face the 5 directions, which is 4 directions and upwards. Adho means downwards. Adho gachanti tamasaha. They devolve. So therefore, it is very relatable in this firmness. A dhriti or a pursuit of which you are oriented towards self-development and self-realization, for which you are able to hold on to all the activities of life. See, dhriti or consistency is with which you take up something and go towards the end of it. You undertake it with a lot of courage and conviction that you don't want to deviate from it. And not only that, all the activities connected with it are also complementary and aimed towards your main pursuit. A person who wants to win Wimbledon is not just going to concentrate on only the tennis practice and the net practice. All other things like the time he gets up, the exercises that he does, the company he keeps and the party he attends and various other disciplines are also food he takes. Everything is aimed towards this. So, if a person has to win Wimbledon, he has to make sure that all these activities are also oriented towards winning Wimbledon. Then he is being consistent in his pursuit. That is going to achieve him certain results in his action. So, now where it is aimed at? That aim is towards the highest, and the actions are done with firmness day in and day out. As we said, you can be even an average person as far as your intelligence is concerned and your pursuit is concerned and your what do you call status is concerned, whatever it is. Yet, if you are being at it again and again and again with that average intelligence also, you turn out to be some achiever. Some success you will gain, for sure. And that is Sattvic Dhriti. Sattvic Dhriti is putting that, so a person has that ability to dig. Here is a coal mine, here is a gold mine. He knows this is the gold mine and he consistently digs it. Irrespective of what it gives him immediate result or something, he knows that this is what it is and he pursues it till he achieves it. So an unwavering firmness in yoga towards the self. So your pranayama, your sensual activities, your food activities, what you intake, is this going to take me towards the self? That is the only question that you have. And therefore, you are able to guide all the actions of your life towards that. This is Sattvic Dhriti. What is Rajasic Dhriti? The pursuits of humans are fourfold, traditionally. You would have heard this term, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. 4 Purusharthas. Purusharthas here means aims, objectives. What is it that you are living your life for? You are living your life for Dharma, Artha and Kama, and finally it is Moksha. Moksha means liberation. Moksha means beyond the world that you want to attain your real original state. Dharma, Artha and Kama belongs to the world. Moksha belongs to transcendental, let us say. So pursuit of worldly things is covered under Dharma, Artha, Kama. Pursuit of transcendental is covered under Moksha. And very few are people who are having liberation or moksha or self-realization, God realization as their ultimate target, and they are able to consistently put effort towards that. Very less. Most people in the world are pursuing, if at all they are pursuing something in the world. And the worldly pursuit can be broadly classified as Dharma, Artha and Kama. In this also, at the present, bereft of Dharma, Artha and Kama. Artha means wealth, Kama means enjoyment. Dharma means Dharma. We have discussed Dharma. So bereft of Dharma, people are mostly employing themselves in acquisition and enjoyment. That is what is their main aim in life is, their pursuit in life is. What is it that you live your life for? If you ask the question, pursuit. Okay, I need to take care of family, all those things that they may say, doing duty according to Dharma, but there is nothing that is connected to a higher pursuit. And for which I need to earn money, I need to build a house, I need all these things, for which I need to have pleasures of life also. All these things is what is making us go through the motions of life. Be it what you spend your time in social media, friends, chat, and various things are aimed towards enjoyment. Or I want to acquire this, go here, or earn money. All those things are coming under acquisition. And I want to do my duty, this, that, all this, it's sitting on the burden like you, that is Dharma. So a person, when he's caught up in this, he is said to be following a Rajasic Grati, Rajasic pursuit, steadfastness. And then what he does, in pursuit, he is craving for the fruit of action. Obviously. That which you are pursuing, you are tremendously craving for what comes out of it. And then egoistic notion of feverishly not leaving that I am the doer, that is also consistently going along with this pursuit. So this qualifies a Rajasic Dhriti. And then comes Tamasic. Of course, it is of a different caliber or nature. As I said, Ado Gachanti Tamasa. The Sattvic people, they are moving upwards towards evolution. Rajasic people are in the world revolving around here in pursuit of acquisition, enjoyment, all those things. Tamasic Dhriti is that again and again this will come out of ignorance, out of stupidity. This person is having a firm grip or firmness in what? You don't abandon sleep, fear, grief, despair, ignorance. So he holds on to his delusory notions. Some people, they will not abandon, means they are not conscious or something, but at any cost they will, given a chance, they have a tendency to sleep. They will not sort of waste time in it. In the sense, they are very much comfortable in wherever they are, whatever they do, they will just fall off to sleep. And they will not leave their depressive state of mind and a state of mind which is utterly, what to say, insecure. And yet they will not leave their arrogance or extreme tamasic hold on pig-headedness, that quality. All these things, they tend not to leave, and they are holding on to it in some form or the other, which has no connection to pursuit of anything, even in this world. Certain notions, certain thoughts, certain, what to say, even religious beliefs, whatever it is, they hold on to something which is basically born out of ignorance, and they are having a steady firmness out of it. Spirits, ghosts, and all these things they hold on to, and they are consistent in it. They will never leave their mental activity around circling around these things, that is a driti which has to be categorized as tamas. And they hold on to their dreams and imaginations. That's what it is. Suddenly they'll say, I saw this, some vision, something, and they are very much believing what they are doing. And in that belief, they become more fearful and more afraid, and they induce fear in others consciously and unconsciously. This type of a thing. See, the point is, there may be people who may have this in a larger scale. But remember, we said in the beginning, all of us have all this. It could be in a very small way that you have experienced sometime, or you have undergone, or from time to time it comes to you. That aspect of you is the tamasic driti. By and large, you could be Rajasic. You are pursuing the world, and sometimes even the Sattvic notion comes in you. It could be a very small percentage. But nobody can be, you must be conscious in understanding your personality, whether you also go through this type of a driti. You also go through holding on to this at some points of time. Then you can understand that the tamasic driti in you is manifest at that point of time. So out of stupidity, you don't abandon sleep, fear, grief, despair, and arrogance. We hold on to dreams and imaginations, and this is driti. Now, there was a question in the last class as to how do we measure, particularly with reference to driti. It is what and how you need to measure is that by and large, unconsciously, now you may be doing it, you may not know. But when you analyze, you think in terms of what exactly are you pursuing and where you are holding and value is. That is what is going to determine how much of Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic driti you have. So a person may not want to say. A person may not be understanding whether he has, as I said, tamas is obviously very difficult to gauge also, measure also. But you might not know that you are tending towards tamasic activities and tamasic things, and you are holding on to it even unconsciously. So we will come when towards the end of the session, we will say how you must measure. That time you have to understand that it is not possible just by yourself measuring this. You have to get the support of some superior intellect also who might want to help you in analyzing yourself. But essentially, you will be oriented towards, by and large, what your personality is oriented. It could be any one of the three gunas. Then we come to happiness. Happiness is the ultimate aim of any pursuit. Whether today you attend the class or not is again based on whether it will ultimately give you happiness. Okay, you may say knowledge, or you may say I want money, that's why I'm pursuing. But through money you want happiness, through knowledge you want happiness, through relationships you want happiness, through emotional bonding you want happiness, through renunciation also you want happiness, through bhakti also you want happiness. Happiness is the ultimate pursuit. And Vedanta proclaims or declares that ultimate state of Ananda is your original state. There are two terms here, Ananda and Sukha. Ananda is something which we can, let us say, translate as, for the sake of understanding, I'm saying, take it as bliss. And Sukha, you take it as happiness or joy. What is the difference between Ananda and Sukha? A very basic difference is that Ananda as a term does not have an opposite in Sanskrit. Sukha has a term which is as its opposite, which is called as Dukkha. Sukha and Dukkha are opposites. So what is the basic difference? Ananda is talking about your Swarupa Lakshana, or your inherent original state of infinite bliss. Infinite doesn't have an opposite in that sense. I don't say infinite and finite. We are not talking about that. We are talking about a state of bliss which is infinite, that does not have any opposite, because it is not an experience to have. It is your Swarupa Lakshana, or your original nature or your state. That is what it is. Satchit Ananda, where we say no Ananda. Ananda is Ananda. So here we are not talking about Ananda. We are talking about Sukha. Because clearly Krishna says, I am going to tell you about the three kinds of happiness, practicing which a man gets rid of sorrow. So that means here is a happiness which you can practice, which you can, I'm getting more chats today. We will take up the chats towards the end. We'll take up the questions towards the end. Yes, you are right. Ananda is not time bound. It is beyond time, space, and causation. Correct. Ananda is talking about your original state, and Sukha is talking about your experience in the world. And the end of Sukha is Dukkha. End of Dukkha is Sukha, relative to each other. So therefore, Sukha and Dukkha are visiting us all the time. When it is favorable for you and your mind is calm, feeling good about it, it is called happiness, Sukha. When it is agitated, you call it Dukkha. So in a general term, we can define happiness here as cessation of agitation. When your mind feels okay, calm. Right? So what is real happiness or Sattvic happiness? Very important definition coming here. By heart, this verse number, I think 37, 38, these two are important. Sattvic and Rajasic. Sattvic happiness, true happiness, and Rajasic happiness, false happiness. Sattvic happiness, he says, starts like a poison and ends like a nectar. Yattad agre vishamiva. Vishamiva, like a poison. Pariname amrita upama. Pariname means towards the end it is like amrita or nectar. Tatsukam satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. It is very, very important to understand this verse because it says anything that is going to give you happiness, true happiness, it is invariably starting like poison in the beginning. Take any good happiness, any clean happiness, anything that you feel extremely satisfied and happy about, getting up early in the morning and studying scriptures, or even getting up early in the morning and doing exercises. It is not a very happy thing to do in the beginning. It is poison. Getting up early in the morning is like a poison. Eating right type of food is not palatable. Junk food is on the other hand very palatable. But eating good rice or dal or without any masala or anything like that, it is not palatable. But as you go on practicing this, ultimately you really begin to enjoy this and it gives you extreme happiness. So here you need to understand as to why this phenomenon happens. This phenomenon happens because mind goes for what gives itself a immediate pleasure. What gives me immediate happiness, what gives me immediate sorrow, based on which is what mind will decide, mind will choose. So you give a candy and a currency note to a small child of 2-year-old on its birthday, the child will choose candy. You will choose currency even though you may like that candy or chocolate, because with that currency you can buy many chocolates, but it is not going to give you immediate satisfaction. You cannot eat that currency. You have to take time to go buy chocolate, but it's a long term, in this example, a long term pleasure. Child also can buy, but why is not child taking the currency? For the simple reason that the child does not know the value of currency. Child knows only one thing, that chocolate, and it gives immediate pleasure. That's all it is. Based on which it chooses, it does not know, therefore it is ignorant of the higher thing. So remember this, mind chooses on the basis of pleasure and pain. Mind chooses on the basis of pleasure and pain. Intellect chooses on the basis of right and wrong. Intellect chooses on the basis of right and wrong. I repeat, mind chooses on the basis of pleasure and pain. Intellect chooses on the basis of right and wrong. Mind says, this is pleasurable, therefore it is right. Intellect says, this is right, therefore it will be pleasurable in the long run. Mind says, this is pleasurable, therefore it must be right. Intellect says, this is the right thing to do. It may not be pleasurable now, but it will be ultimately pleasurable. Ask those people who have got into the habit of eating the right type of food, who are got to the habit of doing exercises or yoga daily, or getting up early in the morning and studying the scriptures. All this, not only it is beneficial for them, they also enjoy it. That is the beauty. So all the pain that we talk about in doing the right type of thing, what Vedanta recommends and all other right way of life recommends, that pain is very temporary in the beginning stage only. Like jackfruit, if you open it, it is all sweet inside. So a person may not be inspired to take up this if you say that throughout the life you have to suffer, and someday, sometime you will get salvation, moksha, in which janma you do not know, but you have to suffer in this lifetime, means he will say, you keep your philosophy, I don't want it. He will not be inspired to say that someday, sometime I am going to get infinite happiness. Till such point of time I am going to suffer in life. That is not worth pursuing. But that is not the case. The destination is also sweet. The path is also sweet. The journey is also sweet. It is just that you need to cross the initial hiccups. That's all. But the question arises, why will a person want to choose that? When will he choose that? That is where the verse says, Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. Sattvic intellect, Sattvic happiness is born out of clarity of one's intellect. This is very important. Unless otherwise you gain clarity of the higher knowledge, you are not going to pursue Sattvic happiness. So real happiness is when you are doing the right things in life and feeling extremely motivated, happy and satisfied about it. And it has to align itself. Once we say intellect, once we say higher values, it has to align itself to Supreme Self. That is where, by gaining Vedantic knowledge, we are putting ourselves in the track towards enjoying ourselves in life. True happiness. Till such point of time, we really do not know what true happiness is, and we consider all other things as happiness, like what it comes as Rajas, which is, as in most cases, exactly the opposite of Sattva. And it says, in the beginning, it is like nectar, and it is in the end, it is like poison. Pariname Vishamiva, it says. Vishendriya Samyogat Yattad Agre Amrita Upamam. Pariname Vishamiva. Tatsukam Raja Samskrit. And how does it happen? We talked a few classes about, so I need not go in detail. Neutralization. Any sense-born contact, contact-born pleasure, sense-contact-born pleasure. It has a beginning, it has an end. Chapter 5, verse 22 or 23 also it says, Antavanta, something. It has a beginning, it has an end, it says. This type of a contact-born pleasure. Yehi samsparshaja bhogaha dukkha yone evati. Samsparshaja bhogaha. Samsparshaja bhogaha means contact-born pleasure. Dukkha yonaya. Dukkha yonaya means they are wombs of sorrow. So it's like a sugar-coated pill. Outwardly it is very sweet, but the moment you bite, you know what is inside. So, and then what happens? You get into it, you get addicted by it. So, it is very, very pleasurable in the beginning. So, you take the opposite examples. Lazing in the bed is very pleasurable. Having bed coffee or bed tea is very pleasurable. If a person has a chance, if he has bed lunch and seeing TV and other things, he continues his life like that. Then what happens? Ultimately, he's bedridden. That's all. He'll permanently be in bed. But it was very pleasurable in the beginning. Junk food, very pleasurable, very nice. But if you keep on eating junk food, what happens? It is going to spoil your system. Not only that, you don't really relish it also. You become addicted and you don't have a way of enjoying it. All the sense-born, sense contact-born pleasures are like this. It is the opposite of Sattva. It begins as nectar, ends up as poison. So Sattvic pleasure diverges, Rajasic pleasure converges. Tamasic, as I said, it's a for different quality altogether. They also have the definition of pleasure holds here. They are also having that satisfied mind or unagitated. Tamas also is like that because agitation are deep inside there. It's not even manifest for us to see. But where do they derive their pleasure from? First of all, yadagrecha anubandhecha. In the beginning and in the end, it is completely delusive of the self. As here also, Sattvic pleasure is how pleasure you derive out of a higher pursuit. Rajasic pleasure is when you pursue the world and contact sense object. Here it is neither. And how does he get? Extremely, so sleeping all the time and deriving some sort of a pleasure. There are people who derive pleasure out of complete laziness. And a kick they get out of being heedless and reckless. You know, from morning you are lazing, not even eating properly and taking bath, but you are not even wanting to watch TV or anything, but you are in your own way, feeling sort of a kick out of it, if at all, you know. All those comes under tamasic pleasure. There are people who do that. What happens? Ultimately, he loses enthusiasm, dynamism in all worldly activities, and he looks forward to only some sort of a pleasure in this area only. So this cannot be really termed as pleasure, but in the category, this falls under tamasic pleasure. Obviously, Rajas and Tamas are not real pleasures. It is categorized like that. And ultimately, what do we do with all these things, all aspects of action, is to go beyond actions. Beyond action is called as Tyaga. Here, the word used in the Gita is Tyaga. The question Arjuna asks in the 18th chapter begins with, what is the difference between Sannyasa and Tyaga? And Krishna gives a brilliant explanation. And what is interesting to note here is, Tyaga is classified under Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Sannyasa is not classified. Very interesting and important point. That means practice of renunciation can be classified, practice of relinquishment can be classified, but sannyasa as a state cannot be classified. It is a state that you achieve by proper practice of Tyaga. And what is Sattvic Tyaga? Very fabulous verse. We may not have time to go in detail, but as I said in the last class, verse 9 talks about this. Mark it with verse 23. Parallelly study them both. Both are verbatim the same. Verse 23 talks about Sattvic action. Verse 9 talks about Sattvic renunciation. Both are same. So what is a grand message that is given here? In fact, when you go to the definitions of Rajasic and Tamasic renunciation, Krishna uses the word Tyaga, relinquishing. When Sattvic renunciation comes, he uses the word doing, performance. Performance of action, not relinquishing. Performance of action which ought to be done. So that means the message here is Sattvic renunciation is nothing but Sattvic action. Very interesting thought. We think they are opposites. So what is the message here? The beauty and grandeur. Look at this statement, Swamiji's statement. The beauty and grandeur of human being is to practice renunciation in action and not a renunciation of action. While practicing, if you want to get rid of action someday, sometime, you have to perform action. A person says he is standing in or walking in a hot sun, and he says, I want to take rest, I want to sit down, I want to relax. So what do you say to him? And there is nothing around. He is walking, let us say, in a desert type of a place. You say to him, walk fast, walk quickly. Then only you can reach your home and you can relax. You are saying, I am asking for solution for rest. I am wanting to relieve myself from walking and getting tired. And you are saying, walk fast, walk more. You are meaning, I am saying how to get rid of walking. You are saying, walk more. Yes. If you want rest, you cannot sit in the middle of the road now and have rest. Therefore, walk properly, walk in the proper direction quickly, go to home and take rest. Exactly like that. These actions are very binding. These actions are something which I am very tired of, monotonous. So what should I do? Vedanta says, perform action. Do more action. Do proper action. Proper action is performing the action with the spirit of renunciation. What do you need to renounce? As we discussed in the last class, action, not in this class, in the Upanishad class, there are three appendages to action. There is a desire that is prompting the action from the past. There is action that is being done in the present. There is a fruit of the action that is pulling from the future. While doing the action, if you are able to take your mind out of this and perform the action in the spirit of duty, that is practicing renunciation in action. So you are not asked to renounce the action, you are asked to renounce the doership in the action, renounce the fruit in the action, renounce the desire, and then you are said to be practicing renunciation. So this is the same exact definition that was given for Sattvic action also. Perform the action without an eye on the results, without the eye on the fruit, without that egoistic notion. That is Sattvic action. So Sattvic action equals Sattvic renunciation. Then Rajasic renunciation is when you want to give up something, some action, because of the mental and the physical trouble that you have. So Arjuna wanted to run away from, okay, that even will come under tamas. See, there are people who, in our time also, I don't know now, usually the percentage of people who pass out in CA exam is very less. Very 3%, 4%, something like that. A person like Ghazni Mohammed tries again and again and again, and he is not able to pass the exam. And then he says, like, very many companies, those who are in financial director and this position, they are ordinary BCom, and CAs are working under him. What is there in CA? CA is nothing. Like the fox says the grapes are sour, and it says, what is there in this grapes, and it leaves, because it is not able to reach that. Because of some trouble you give up, and that cannot be taken as, so see, this person doesn't have a value for CA also. What a great renunciation. Not so. If there is a change in syllabus and if the institute decides to pass many number of people, you will come and write again. It is not actual renunciation at all. And then you don't get the fruit of renunciation while practicing Rajasic renunciation. What is that? Fruit of renunciation is evolution. Fruit of renunciation is extreme satisfaction and maturity. You will not get all those things. You will be parallelly moving somewhere, moving in circle. That's all. And that person is not going to pursue anything else also. Because any pursuit, you have to have that ability to fight it out. Any trouble that comes and you go away from that battle, you are not fit for anything. So this type of renunciation is Rajasic renunciation. Tamasic is, out of delusion, you do not know what you are leaving. You relinquish what ought to be done. Just to give an example, Swamiji says a lady carries a handbag in one hand and garbage bag in the other hand to throw into the garbage. Out of confusion, out of delusion, she throws the handbag into the bin. And somebody is watching this and he says, this lady doesn't have value for the money. Just for the example's sake. What type of renunciation is it? It is not renunciation. It is out of delusion that you leave something which you ought not to leave. A time and place is there that you, according to your Swadharma and your stage in life, you ought to do certain duties. As a student, let us say you ought to study now, and you say, no, I'm going to do this, leave everything, leave the house, join in some student agitation, revolution, something like that. You say, you are really, and I'm not going to go to school. Suppose if a person relinquishes like that, out of what stupid notion he does, all that will come under Tamasic renunciation. It is not renunciation at all. It is not going to take you anywhere. It will take your life down the drains. That's all it will happen. So all these 6 things plus 7th one, renunciation, what you do is, you try to figure this, your personality, try to measure yourself and put percentage across Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. As I said, couple of things you need to keep in mind. Once in a while only you have to do this, maybe once a year, once in 6 months. You try to measure yourself against these definitions with a calm mind. Try to analyze yourself. If a person is by and large Rajasic, then he may not, it will not happen that a person has then a very high Sattvic knowledge and then action is very Tamasic. It will not be too skewed that way. A person is highly Rajasic will have more or less high Rajas in all the components also in general. But there can be specific areas which need extra attention. Extra, a person let's say tamas in him could manifest in laziness in a big way. For some, it could be in a way that it is in a vulgar display or something like that. So those are the areas that you need to understand that this aspect of me is in tamas. And as far as his intellect is concerned, he is little more balanced. But at the action level, the body doesn't pull. So definitely at the action level, there will be little more tamas. But as I said, Sattvic cannot be, Sattvic action cannot be 20%, and Sattvic knowledge can be 80%. It will not be skewed that much. A slight deviation or what you call a divergence from mean can be there. And thirdly, when you do this, you try to consult a superior intellect who may be your guru. So that person has to be objective. That person has to be having welfare of you in mind, obviously a guru type of a person, because if you ask a person who is your friend or something, their involvement in you could camouflage their judgment. And also a person who could be neutral but who doesn't have intellect, who doesn't know how to analyze and think, he cannot also be a person who can help you. So from time to time, if you do this, you do once now, once in 1 year later, and you compare yourself, then you know in that specific area if you have put in effort, and it will help you to analyze yourself. So this personality chart is a very important portion, and it helps us in a way that probably nowhere else in scriptures it is given to analyze ourselves. It holds a mirror to our personality. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, we can take. I'll see if there is anything in the chat. First is, hello, Sarab says, can we have example to distinguish between Rajasic and Tamasic intellect? Yes, I think we have taken that. Arjuna's example is the best example that I can think of. And as we said, you can find people who are so clear and so firm in the opposite. So you cannot really even make them understand what it is. A person, when it is confused, so when our own intellect is confused and not able to come to a conclusion, that is Rajasic in nature.
Sir, can I interject over here?
Yeah.
So I'm confused about this Arjuna, when in the chapter 1, he is very clear that he should not fight.
Yeah.
And that we are saying it is Tamsic, because it is exactly opposite of what is Sattvic intellect. He is very clear that he should not be fighting at all.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, Duryodhan is very clear that he has to fight, and it is based on adharma. Can we say that his logic for fighting is Rajasic?
No, first of all, intellect, thinking and other things, the dilemma doesn't come to Duryodhan. He has been very clear that he will not give the property back to Pandavas, and therefore he is hell-bent on war. He is very arrogant about Bhishma, Drona and others who are in his army, and he was pretty sure that he was going to win the war. So there's no question of his intellect. If at all you say, it is very clear in that sense, that will fall under Tamasic category.
That will also fall under Tamasic in that sense. Okay.
Yeah. When we are not talking about Arjuna being a Tamasic person or his intellect being Tamasic, but at that point of time, what is the expression in it is the example of a Tamasic intellect.
So that was my leading question, was that as you are pointing out that we are all having a admixture of Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic. And at some point, so a person who has less of Sattvic also can sometimes come out with the right reasoning, and a person with more Rajasic will be more confused. So that is why I'm a little confused on the Rajasic action part, because both Duryodhan and Arjun over here, we are considering them that Arjun in chapter 1 is Tamasic knowledge, Tamasic intellect, and Duryodhan is also dealing with Tamasic intellect over here. So where does the Rajasic intellect then come in? That is what
Arjuna in the second chapter is Rajasic. He is very confused. He says that I am not sure whether I should fight or not. That confusion is the Rajasic intellect, and after that only knowledge can be given. That is what Krishna waits for.
So are we in that sense saying that if we are clear about action at any given time, then it is either Tamsic or Sattvic?
Arjuna is not clear about action. Arjuna is clear about running away from action. So, as I said, in terms of manifestation, Tamasic and Sattvic will mimic each other. But Tamasic intellect is ulta. It is completely the opposite that it will see.
No, my question is, does this lead to the analogy that, let us say, even in chapter 1, for example, Arjun is trying to give a sort of a Sankhya Yoga for reasoning for why he should not be fighting.
Think in Sankhya Yoga here. So you are using words which have no relevance in first chapter at all. Sankhya Yoga is completely different. Sankhya Yoga is a very logical reasoning which comes to an irrefutable conclusion. Arjuna doesn't give that way. If he has given that way, he will not be crying and sitting on the chariot. So that is not, he is prattling basically, and it is coming out of the emotional aspect of his personality. It has nothing to do with proper reason and logic, even though he is bringing various aspects of society and woman being corrupt and various things. So that should not be brought in question.
So if we are ever having a clarity of objective of action, that means that is Sattvic, Swamiji?
In terms of what is the proper action and what is the right thing to be done at the right time, that is what is Sattvic intellect. So Sattvic intellect very clearly distinguishes. Go by the definition. It not what is to be done, what ought not to be done, all those things. Just because you are very clear of something, it need not be Sattvic in the context of what you are asking, because you may be very clear of opposite also. That need not constitute then.
Okay, Swami. Thank you, Swami.
Without desire, how can one perform action or know what action to perform? What will be the motivation? Yes, without desire, you cannot perform the action. That is correct. So the motivation is a higher desire. You are not pursuing action based on worldly desires and selfish desires, which is going to bind you more, which will make you crave fruits more. You are motivated by certain higher ideals and higher principles. So that will be making you act in a more spirited way, more enthusiastic and more consistent in your actions. So it is possible. Here we are talking about higher desires.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are intellect and mind opposite forces, or are they complementary to fulfill an action? Good question. Intellect and mind need not be opposite forces always, but most of the time we see them opposite because of the lack of development of our intellect. We go by the tendencies of the mind, which is going for immediate joy or immediate pleasure. So therefore, that aspect in us which says what is right, and that aspect in us which is pulling towards doing whatever we are liking, they seem to be in contradiction to each other. When a person becomes more evolutionary, more sattvic in nature, mind and intellect tend to cooperate with each other, and then they will synchronize with each other. But in general, you will find that when it is not developed, mind tends to go with what gives immediate pleasure and immediate pain. Therefore, usually it is opposed to what is the intellect going to say. So they can be complementary. For example, if I like to talk in a class like this, and my intellect also says that this is the right thing to do, then both may confluence. But the question arises, what is really prompting me to talk? Prompting me to talk should come from my goal, my intellect, that it is the right thing to do. That's where it should come from. Incidentally, I may enjoy talking, I may like talking also. That is separate. But in an example like when a diabetic patient wants to eat sweets and his intellect says you should not eat sweets, then there is a clear case of dilemma. So most of the times it is like that. Push and pull are there in the opposite direction. The Kurukshetra war happens in the opposite direction, so they are opposed to each other. But sometimes they may be in the same direction also.
Poornam Adah Poornamidam Poornat Poornamudachyate Poornasya Poornamadaya Poornamevavashishyate